Nigerian tech talents are making waves across the globe, from building new solutions to leading teams in some of the world's most competitive ecosystems. But as more of our brightest minds find opportunities abroad, it raises a critical question. Are we losing our best, or is there a new kind of influence emerging, one that connects global success back to home? In this interview with Damilare Ogunleye, director at TN Niger, we will be looking at the growing footprint of Nigerian tech professionals on the global stage and what it will take to turn brain drain into brain circulation. Damilare, we're seeing more Nigerian tech professionals contributing to innovation hubs around the world. I mean, they're building, scaling, and leading within systems that offer access to funding, stable infrastructure, and even supportive policies. What's it like operating in that kind of environment compared to building at home?
Oh, thanks a lot, Amy. I think the first thing for founders and people in technology of Nigerian descent like myself, when we move to the UK, is it takes a bit of time to navigate the ecosystem first. So there's that reality of acclimatization. You haven't lived here, you haven't worked here, so that's that journey. But once you start to understand how the ecosystem really works, you sense that there is a lot of thoughts in terms of access, structure, long-term thinking in supporting innovation within the UK. And I'm just speaking as one. I'm speaking as someone who is part of a community of Nigerians called TN Niger, of over 600 plus Nigerian tech professionals. And just speaking across the team, it's quite clear that everyone is surprised by the level of support that is available here in the UK. And I think it's not just that, it's also how organized the support is. It's something that we didn't really find as much back home in Nigeria. We're starting to see some footprints of possible support, but it's just not as organized, not as structured. And of course, there's a lot more capital available to those who are building, those who have imaginations that they really want to execute quite a few things.
I mean, a couple of these things, we're still working on them here in Nigeria, but we do have a minister that seems determined to solve them because it's been a part of the ecosystem and has experienced, some of these issues too. But with all of this infrastructure, with all of this access that you have that's making tech talents, thrive in these countries, what do you think are the biggest advantages they're gaining, and how are they translating that global exposure into real impact, whether personally or for their communities?
Oh, thank you very much. I think, like I rightly said earlier on, and you spotted that, thankfully, we have a minister who's come from what I like to consider the diaspora, which is what I mean, it's an interesting term that I've suddenly become a part of. So there's quite a few initiatives that they're starting to ramp up. I mean, it's still early days before we start seeing some of the impact. But for us, what we've seen is just that access to global teams and quite stable infrastructure. So when I talk about global teams, just even being in organizations that are building products for hundreds of millions of users across the world, it just kind of takes your level of exposure and your level of experience as a tech talent, and it 100x's it. There's also the diversity of the team. All of a sudden, you're in teams that are working across multiple time zones, and it builds competence in you as an individual in not just managing the teams, but also managing relationships within the teams. And then there's absolutely stable infrastructure. When it comes to building, there's just been a lot of rails, and I don't mean transport rails, I mean rails of infrastructure that have been laid that you don't have to start thinking about the work. So an example, if you're building in fintech, there's quite a few sandboxes that exist. There's strong regulation that exists. There's quite a few building blocks so that you can really focus on what's the core. I mean, in Nigeria, maybe these are an opportunity, or these are opportunities where if you were trying to innovate in one sector, you will find that you then need to go into multiple routes to start solving problems that are not your core competence. I think that's something that you see here where a lot of infrastructure has been laid over the years. And I think that for us is why for members of the community in TNIJ, we in working in these global teams, we gain belief, we gain competence, we gain skill sets, and we are starting to see that we can give some of that back to our own immediate communities as one to one or within these communities of Nigerians who are working in tech in the UK, but more importantly, building bridges back home, whether that be mentoring those back home, investing in a few ventures back home, or collaborating with those who are still back in Nigeria, building and even despite these challenges we've talked about, trying to make things work. And in the UK, we have people scattered in different sectors, contributing to some of the largest organizations here, whether it be in fintech, public service, energy, digital policy, just quite scattered. And we think that as the years go by, the competence that we build, the skill sets that we build, would be ultimately a gain or an advantage for the country because we now have skill sets that we can kind of exchange back with our country, our home country, Nigeria.
Well, it must be interesting working in that environment where you feel everything is built for your own success. But, for us here in Nigeria, and like you said, we might not see the immediate impact, but the building blocks are being laid just to ensure that eventually we can get there, right? Now, Larry, some countries have been very intentional about attracting the world's best minds, including Nigerians, through special visa programs and incentives. Do you think the country is losing out to these programs, or is there another way to look at it?
Yeah, the famous jackpot question. I mean, I think if we first peel the layers, the first thing is just to realize that the competition for talent has become much more global. And with the fifth industrial revolution, which I call AI plus, it's just going to increase. It's not going to slow down. So if the best talents in a country would suddenly find that they are the world is their playing ground. And with that, nation states are going to have to think about initiatives or incentives to kind of retain the talents. And in certain instances where the talents really can't be retained, how do you then tap into the exposure? And for me, that's how I personally would think about brain drain. It's something we see at here in Nigeria, where we're not just thinking of it as brain drain, we're thinking of brain circulation. And if you take countries like India, like China, where they have their citizens who have gone into global companies, organizations, or started organizations, or lead what you call tech behemoths. You find that just that bridge that exists between where they are in their new country in the West and their own country provides significant growth opportunities for their own country. And we think that that's something that's possible with a bit of intentionality from our own government, where we can tap into the superpower in terms of like the brain power that is available. I take the UK for example, and I'll take the TN Niger community. Um, there are other Nigerians who are not in the TN Niger community who are holding their own down in tech in the UK. But we in TN Nigeria, we came to the UK on the global talent visa. It's probably one of the best visa programs you can think of anywhere in the world. A few countries are starting to replicate that, but it gives you access to almost all the opportunities that even citizens of the country have right very early on. And I think that's quite encouraging. Like I talked about earlier, that there are infrastructures that exist, there's access to funding, there's significant ecosystem support and structured one. And what that then means is that people are incentivized to find this place a lot more attractive. I think for us as a nation, as we start to think about what's playing up in this landscape, is really how can we design initiatives that allow some of these super talents, whether it be in the UK, in the US, anywhere else, who are working in global organizations, to kind of contribute significantly. An example I'll give is India launched a fellowship program that allows people in the diaspora to actually come and for a very short time contribute their local expertise back home in India. And it's think of it like an exchange program. It will be great to see if the country starts to actively launch some of those programs where there's opportunities for those of us in the diaspora to contribute. But more importantly, that those in the diaspora see that there's value in it. I think that would be the way we can start to think about this as not brain drain or jackpot or everyone, but as brain circulation, where we take and get access to global systems and transfer some of that knowledge and some of that expertise with local nuance into working situations back home in Nigeria.
Well, damn, Larry, I was going to get into the brain drain, brain circulation question, but I think you already hit the nail on the head. As more of our talent make waves internationally, how do we build an ecosystem in Nigeria that they still feel connected to? One that doesn't just export talent, but also invites them to plug back in meaningfully?
I think there's a level of intentionality that needs to happen, both from a policy point and a reward point of view that welcomes diaspora participation and then provides infrastructure that enables collaboration. I know that there's quite a lot of work infrastructure-wise that's been ongoing over the years. There are a few ideas that I know of where they're building specific clustered spaces. I know that there's some digital talent city that's also ongoing where you almost can create a bubble of some sorts that replicates or mimics the experiences some of those in diaspora, some of those in like our communities already are used to, and they can then come into Nigeria and significantly contribute their own expertise or their own experiences, but more importantly, because they're Nigerians with their understanding of local nuance, can make it very impactful from day one. I think that if I were to think about that, it's the level of intentionality, whether it be fellowships, it be structured incentives, it be recognition for work. I know that the Honorable Minister did something in the AI space, in AI research, where there were quite a few individuals invited from the diaspora to contribute to Nigeria's AI position or policy position. And I think across different thematic areas, we need to see more of that, where there is significant incentive for people to bring their superpower, I like to call it, to bear. And I think that we might be on the right path. We just need to accelerate that because again, the like I talked about earlier, the competition for talent is only going to get more intense, and people are going to have to very quickly be having to constantly thinking about why should I do this? Yes, I'm Nigerian, but is Nigeria welcoming of my contribution or it doesn't? And if people start to see that there is less and less recognition or less and less welcome for their contribution, people are going to just have to stick with where they now call home, which might be in this case the UK, the US, Dubai, South Africa, wherever that they feel that their talent is being appreciated.
I know so many of us want to see that Nigerian dream come to reality, but we can only take it one step at a time. Thank you so much, Damilare Ogunleye, Director at TA Niger, for joining us on Tech Trends.
Thanks for allowing me.